in a gun room. So I'm happy to say it's hump day, it's Wednesday, and we've got another great episode. So I'm excited to introduce Karalyn Martin, United States Marine Corps veteran, Miss America Veteran Selectee for 2023-2024. She is also very active in the Dallas Fort Worth area. Lot of charitable things going on. We're going to get into it. So let's bring her onto the show. Let's welcome Karalyn Martin. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, it's going well. How are you?
Man, I'm doing good. If I was doing any better, it'd probably be illegal.
That's true. That's good.
So let's give everybody a little background. Tell them a little bit about Karalyn and where you grew up and all that good stuff.
So I guess it's like for another time type thing. I guess it's hard to say like where I grew up or where I was from. It was kind of nomadic. I was born in Corsicana, Texas, and ultimately graduated from Corsicana High School at 17. Pretty bad traumatic childhood. So I was homeless at the time. Had graduated early, so decided to leave and was like, saw a commercial type situation. And I was like, the military will get me out of here. I can survive. Like that'll help me survive my circumstances. So given that I was 17, I was able to find a way to communicate with my dad, which I wasn't supposed to because I was under 18 and he's was a registered sex offender at the time. And then my mother wasn't exactly the most stable. So long story, they signed. The Marine Corps recruiter was the first one to call me back. It was also at the time a branch that didn't require you to cut your hair. And that was kind of important to me for some reason. I mean, I wanted to survive, but I didn't want to chop my hair off at the same time. So I became a Marine. I turned 18 in boot camp. And then just kind of went from there, served 5.5 years in the Marine Corps, got out, went to cosmetology school, did my undergrad in psychology, and then my master's in social work, and really just found a niche for like nonprofit work. So that's kind of my background of what got me to where I'm at today.
So what year was it that you went into the Marines?
In 2007.
2007. Okay, so you also came in after 9/11 too then?
Correct, yes. So I am an OEF veteran, I guess. I did serve a tour in Afghanistan in 2011. So it was hot. Like it was hot, and I don't miss that heat. Like living in Texas, I would not be here again. Like I'm back in Texas, and that's just like a weird coincidence that I'm back in Texas in general, but I'm in North Texas, and it's hot. And one of the things with me is I am 100% permanent, totally disabled. I look fine. But one of the biggest things, I have a neurological disorder. And so me and the heat do not mix.
I don't get along with the heat either because I'm fat. But no, I agree. You know, I retired in Georgia and I'm down here in Missouri now. So I like Missouri a lot better. There's actually 4 seasons. So
Right. Yeah, I enjoyed. That was one of my favorite things I think about being stationed in Japan. That was my first duty station, was Iwakuni, Japan, and having 4 seasons. Yes, it got hot. Yes, it got cold. But you could go to the beach during the summer. You could snowboard during the winter. You had the cherry blossoms during the spring. Like that was just an absolute beautiful place. And we moved down here from Michigan. My husband's also a Marine veteran, and so that at least has 4 seasons. I feel like. Even though I would say like pothole construction's a whole season there, but it's a beautiful place. And the long distance family that I have up there, that's the Maltese side of my family, is still in Michigan. And I miss them a lot. It was nice being up there by them, but it's cold and snowy, but
yeah,
I can do that over the heat any day. The neurological part does not do well in the heat. So it's been a battle.
Yeah. Me and you kind of came in, I mean, not exactly for the same reasons, a lot of people you ask them, especially recently after 9/11, people say they came in because they wanted to fight or they wanted to do this and that. I came in because I started a family early and I needed a job. I was young, not mature, and I had a wife and had responsibilities that I wasn't mature enough to keep a job and do the right thing. So I needed I needed income, and that's why I came in, you know. And in '94, there was no thoughts of, you know, any wars or anything like that going on. The worst thing you were going to get was a rock from a lawnmower from mowing the grass from some detail somewhere, you know.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, me and you know, we came out of a necessity, you know, that we're trying to fulfill a necessity in our life. So I absolutely I get that, and um, the military is a great place to fulfill those, you know, especially if you're like me and you're young and you haven't matured yet. It's a great place to mature and find yourself. So
Yes, absolutely. Because even if you don't continue and make it a retirement, which I would highly encourage, like looking back on if that was something physically I could have done, then yes. But um, it really did mold me and make me like, I still have my battles, but um, it definitely did set me up for success at minimum at
yeah,
what just in general in growing up. I would have never made it. I mean, I know that for a fact. So
yeah, I agree. I mean, the it's a different mentality. So
mhm.
I agree. You know, um, without that will to fight, and you know, I see it in the civilian world. You know, people
Mhm.
come to a problem and they just stop, and they don't have that strive to fight through it. And so yeah, I absolutely I do get it. What'd you do? What was your enlist in the Marines?
I was a 6072, which from my understanding is no longer existent. They merged the 72s and 73s. So like the proper, or we called it ground support equipment. The proper title was like aviation hydraulic structural mechanic. And so I did the mechanic because the 73s were the electric side of everything. And though I had to read a schematic and I get them now, then when you're like having to go through the schooling, that schematic side was like fried my brain. The mechanical side, I'd grown up with dabbing into that with dirt bikes and drag racing and all that stuff that I was exposed to. So it's like I was able to understand that a little better. But that's what I did, and I miss it. But I couldn't see myself doing it in the civilian sector, like working
Yeah,
for American Airlines or I mean, because tug is who like one of the things in the Marine Corps and in the civilian sector that makes the tow tractors, if that makes sense. So
absolutely. I was in the maintenance field as well. I was a wheel mechanic, so I worked mostly on refuelers and you know the bigger tankers and stuff like that. So
oh yeah.
I was in the army though, so don't hold it against me. I know.
No, I'm not. I'm definitely not ever one of those like, oh, this branch is better than the other. Each one of it has, like in the nonprofit work I do, I got to go down to Fort Cavazos and see that Army base, which was obviously used to be known as Fort Hood. And I there's each branch really has its own thing that the other doesn't.
Yep.
And that was really exciting to see some of the things that they offer that the Marine Corps doesn't, or um, I wouldn't trade it for anything, but I definitely appreciate that everybody, like whatever branch you served in, like we are all together in this type mentality. I don't, oh, one is better than the other. I guess it's never been my demeanor.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I'm not going to lie. About halfway through my career, I was trying to look at going into the Navy, and the reason why was just the technology in the Army. It's not the same. It's a different mission. It's
Right.
about being technically proficient. It's about speed. You know, they'd rather have the equipment fixed fast versus the troubleshooting. You know, take the whole engine out, put the whole engine in. Let's go. You know,
Hmm.
and I was looking for something a little bit more technical, but they couldn't guarantee a position as a CB, and because they do things way different there. So,
Right. Right.
so I never, you know, I ended up retiring as in the Army. I stayed there, but yeah, you're right. There, every branch is a little bit different, and they got their pros and their cons, and so absolutely. So, what year did you ended up getting out?
I got out in 2012. So it was like when people were like, you did 5.5 years. Was it medical or was it this or that? And I had just done it. I did a 6-month extension to go to Afghanistan. And so, no, my discharges just honorable. In aviation, we have a 5-year contract. So that makes it that weird, like questionable time and service number. But July 2012 is when I was my actual like EOS date. And then I went to cosmetology school 3 days later. So in San Diego, California, which was a whole new, I don't know what the hell I got myself into. but it's why I feel like I look put together now. I can thank cosmetology school for finding that feminine side of everything, because that wasn't during my time. And it's weird to say like back during my day, because I don't feel like I'm like that salty, but looking at female Marines now compared to what we've looked like in the past, it's a whole different breed of women really being Marines and embracing their femininity at the same time. And that wasn't the case during my time.
I was gonna say the Marines didn't bring out your feminine side. I'm shocked.
Yeah, I often think that, which may not be as politically correct today, but I would often question my gender identity then, I think, more than I would now, because it was pretty masculine, pretty, thought I could take on the world and
Yeah,
kick down doors and take names, I guess, no matter what the circumstances were. It's just good, bad, and indifferent. But yeah.
but I think that's needed, especially in the Marines.
Mhm.
Typically, you know, even on the male side, the Marine men are even a little bit more gung ho, vulgar, even compared to the Army. You can
Yes.
you take the two branches and you put them in the bar, and the Army will be in the bar longer. The Marines will be kicked out first. And
Yeah.
so you guys would have to be a little bit more manly to handle them.
Yeah, and I did. I had to, unfortunately, I mean, I have a history of having to deal with some of that. And it is definitely, it's a learning thing. I mean, it's not something that defined my Marine, like who I am as a Marine, or hindered what I love about the Marine Corps. But yeah, I definitely had to um just be strong and know that, like my male counterparts, and trust me, I some of my best friends, Carl Emerson, who owns Broken Tusk up here in North Texas, and he's a Marine veteran, also GSE. We actually met because I did this MOS reunion, suicide prevention reunion, during COVID, actually, and I wouldn't have been successful without him. And then Doug Stidham from uh, Doug Stidham Photography, he's a Marine as well, a Desert Storm Marine. And my husband's always like, they're mouths. And I'm just like, they're not talking to me like that. They're just talking like that because that's just, they're Marines to the core. And I love it. Like, it just doesn't offend me. It
Yeah.
cracks me up. Like, it really is just funny.
And that's just the veteran sense of humor. I mean,
Mhm.
it's the same on the Army side, and it's probably not the same on the Air Force, but I mean,
Yeah,
for
that's true.
of us, it's the same.
Yeah.
But you have to have that. I call it that eighth grade mentality. You know,
Yes. Yeah.
um, to just fit in. So you went to cosmetology school, and then after that, what did you? I know you said you got out 100%. Was it 100% workable or non-workable?
It's workable. So I think my original one was like at 90, and then it got bumped to 10. So I went to cosmetology school, got my license there, still maintain a license in California and Texas. My husband got put on what the Marine Corps calls the HIS list. And so he got selected for recruiting. We were
Oh,
supposed to go, yeah, we were promised we were going to Texas because that's where his family he's a Air Force brat. And we thought we are going to Texas, and we got orders. And he calls me when I'm in cosmetology school, and he's like, we're going to somewhere in Ohio. And I was like, the hell we are, I'm not going. And then they switched it, and he was like, got signed to RS Detroit, Michigan.
all of a sudden, Ohio, so bad is it?
No, well, so what was so bad about Ohio is that they don't have reciprocity for my license. And I'm like, I just spent a year in like with one of the top states for cosmetology, and they're not going to have reciprocity. So going into Michigan made it like seem a little better. But Detroit, I was like, I mean, I mean, he claims Tampa as his home. And so two Southern people being in the North was like, we don't even know how to deal with this. So I
They
got
don't
up there. Yeah. The industry is very different. Obviously they were way behind in finding Paul Mitchell specific, or, hair salon specifically. I was like, just so stressed out. So then I was like, I'm just going to finish my undergrad. I had started it in the military. And so I went with psychology, not knowing that that doesn't do anything for you, by the way. um, and focus more on child development. We had our first daughter, or my first child up there, our daughter, in December of 2014, which was we were there in December 14, which was the worst snowfall in history. And then December 15 was, am I saying that back? Like 13? I got there in 13. So December 13 was the worst snowfall in history. And the 14th was the coldest in history ever. So, my daughter had her born up there. She was born up there in the winter. And then my husband got out after 10 years. And then we moved to Texas. And then my son, unfortunately, however you want to look at it, was born 11 months later. They're only 11 months apart. It was not intentional. And so he was born here in Fort Worth, Texas. And so I have they're 7 and 8, soon to be 8 and 9 this month and next month. So when I got here, it was like, okay, he wasn't planning on getting out of the military. That's kind of his story. So we're like, what do we do? We're in Texas. We sold our house up there. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start working. So I was working for CPS, which is Child Protective Services here. They pay well. That job is horrible. But I was also affected by CPS as a kid. So it's kind of like I don't know. That's what psychology in undergrad or sociology, those social service type degrees get you, is social work So then I was like, I'm going to do my master's in social work. I originally was going to go to law school and had set everything up for that, but I'm just glad I didn't. I mean, I had 2 infants and diapers and misplanting and so I finished my master's in social work, and then just kind of just like a random thing happened here. And then I just ended up diving into nonprofits. I got sucked into Air Power Foundation is literally the foundation of my nonprofits, because of the couple services from veteran nonprofits I had received out in California for my late service dog Coco, along with a couple other things. Come to find out, Air Power Foundation is based right here in Fort Worth, and they had grant funded some of those programs, those nonprofits. And I was asked to come to one of their board meetings some years ago, and to talk about how, getting service dog training affected me and what it had done for me. And in my case, it really helped me with the suicide ideations and issues I had by having my dog with me, because it's a mobility and a psychological, service dog, really. And then next thing I know, I'm doing these speaking events and telling my story, and then it just expanded nationwide, as far as like nonprofit where it goes.
Yeah, I think that's, I think that's important, because I started this podcast with my first son, hence the name why it was called Two Drunk Dudes in a Gun Room. And after season 1, he kind of dropped off, and now I just tell people you have to drink enough to where you see 2 of me. But it's kind of led me kind of down that same road. So I'm now doing that same thing. I'm starting a nonprofit, and it's quickly grown, and it quickly eats up a lot of time.
Yes.
But there's days where it feels overwhelming, and then there's days that it just feels so rewarding. I don't know how else to explain it, but I don't think I would change anything. I really don't.
No.
And so I definitely do get it. And I think that's what the veteran community really does need, because, all these outside sources and all the money in the world can build all these major programs, like the VA and all these big programs, but they're going to have their hands tied by all the red tape and everything else. When the truth is, the mom and pop veteran nonprofits are going to be the ones that really are the boots on the ground and can help, because the veteran community knows when to push and when to put their foot up your ass, and when to make you take responsibility for yourself, and when you need that hand up or that hug or whatever, and so I just think all of us coming together and working together is what it's going to take.
Right.
I tried therapy myself. It didn't work for me. the drugs helped. It kept me kind of on a. I was never happy. I was never sad. I was just, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And, podcasting is, and that's why I kept doing it, because I found out that I slowly was able to get my story out and talking, and it felt better whether one person listened or no people listened or 10,000 people listened.
Oh yeah.
So that's why I kept doing it. It was for myself, and then it led from there. So that's why I still do it. I enjoy talking to other people and learning stuff. So one thing I'm about to learn about now is the Miss America veteran, because I had no, when I see, I had to Google it. I was like, is this real?
Yeah.
Did somebody, like, was there supposed to be a comma where, like, was she in the Miss America pageant / she's a veteran, or
Yeah.
no, it's a real thing. So let's get into that. How did, I know you were also you were trying out in 2020 as well, am I right? Or you were in it in 2022, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's two different like it's two different, I'll explain it. So it's two different things that kind of like dragged me here. So I had, like, being in Texas, pageants are huge. Didn't grow up pageant, like I said, not girly, not like, I don't even know how to explain that. So I'm like, I wonder if there's a Miss Veteran America, and sure enough, there is. And so the thing is that Miss Veteran America is really, I don't know how to explain what the pageant idea of it, I guess, if that makes sense. The sash, the crown, the idea of it is that ultimately Final Salute Incorporated, which they're a nonprofit's mission base to provide resources and benefits to homeless female veterans and children, because that's one of the fastest growing numbers of homelessness out of all homelessness. North Texas has the most. And they don't typically get counted during the boots on the ground count for the year, because you're not going to find homeless female veterans typically in shelters, because the ones that are funded by the VA don't accept women and children. They only accept single individuals. So then that whole population gets left out and then don't receive the resources. So that's one of the major ones, to my knowledge, that helps with that. And so that's Miss Veteran America kind of helps raise awareness for that. Your whole platform is for them, versus any other type of pageant system is you pick your platform. And so after I did finish in the top 10 with Miss Veteran America, I developed this absolutely amazing group of women. They call us, I don't know if they call it the Fab 8 is what we call each other. They've been phenomenal. We've kept in touch. We've seen each other multiple times. One of them was like flagged Royal Productions Pageants, and we're like, hey, they're starting a veterans division. It's their inaugural year. So first year, let's do this. And so last year I went, and I was like, that's real pageant stuff, right? That's dresses, that's hair, that's makeup, it's interviews, it's walking, it's posing, it's fun fashion. And I was like, I lost my ass in Atlanta. I was like, I don't know if I'm coming or going. But the one thing that got to me the most is that, one, to my knowledge, unless it's just changed recently, they are the only pageant production company that has a veterans only division. So our interviews, like this year, were more military based, had military judges that are in the pageant system. We don't cover up our tattoos. Our platforms are typically veteran oriented. And although there's a place for anybody in Royal Productions pageants, whether you're skinny, you're plus size, no matter what your age, whether it's my child competed, my daughter, who is 8, up to, I don't know how the oldest one is, but up there in age, there's a division for them. And there was the most empowering thing to go in and not have drama, and just love and empowering to support each other. And our platforms are usually sentimental to our heart, and why. So with that, that's where kind of what I did was, like, I wanted to do it. And I was like, I'm not doing this again. I don't know what I'm doing. I just don't know that world. But the CEO who's Natasha, Monique Coleman, and then the director, Danielle Yancey, and then just all of the other directors and people that have done it for years, they were just, you got this, like, do this again. Because what I wanted to do was take my platform and what I do here in North Texas to a national level. And so how do I do that outside of competing for a national title? So I was Miss Lone Star State lost my ass to the national title. Then I was Miss Texas. And then this year I was like, okay, fine, I'll go. I'm going. And I had a really rough year. It's been a healing journey after a failed suicide attempt in November. We're coming up on actually a year of that. And I was like, I can't do this again. I can't stand there and talk about veterans resources to reduce recidivism in every aspect, right? Whether it's medical, it's criminal, it's whatever the case is. And then veteran or suicide ideations and preventing that. How am I supposed to support that when I'm somebody that almost lost that battle and left this world too soon? But they were just supportive in it. And it wasn't a quid pro quo. What's in it for them? It was just like, you got this. People need to know your story. You're healing. Like, get out here and take it. And so that's just kind of the mentality I did. And so that's how I took the national title this year for Miss America Select Veteran. The Miss isn't because I'm not married. It's Miss because I'm 35 and under. And then there's different ones. But, and again, it was another amazing experience, something cool to do with my daughter, to see her do it too. Although that's a whole different level of pageantry. And just get out there and I get to meet new women, new ones that, because it's open to any veteran that's currently serving, reservist, active, served, any age, like you said, size, whatever. So it's just so that, and then that's my platform. And that's what I've kind of, it's trying to juggle. This is a really busy time of year for myself as far as Air Power Foundation and Holidays and Heroes and other stuff, which is why a big reason I'm trying to raise money for them, because that money gets kicked out too. For example, nonprofits, if you were to start yours and it's veteran based, you submit those grants, and I can kind of talk about that again shortly. But I went out there and sure enough, didn't even think, I thought I would just lose my ass again, and just told myself, hey, I got to do this with my daughter. I got to be out here with other veterans and women and support each other, and it just accepting me for who I am and genuine. But I didn't. They called my damn name, and it was like, okay. And so it was, and so now I got to use that platform tied into what I do, talk about what World Productions Pageant is, who's eligible, and kind of do some appearances. We're required to do once a month. I'm pretty active, especially this time of year. So I typically just make sure it's with me, because my group knows here, and then just try to, I don't know, I would like to see more women do this, especially because I'm always the only Marine. And I'm like, come on, because it's fun. And it's a great way to network. And that's probably the key, in my opinion, to making it through this horrible society, especially as a veteran and a female veteran at that. You just don't get those, same thing like you struggle with the civilian sector. You just don't get those friendships and those connections with other women once you leave the service. And this is definitely a way to make those connections and truly be empowered by other women. So I would like to see other female Marines, especially, but other veterans do this next year as they open this up for, they've already got the venue and titles are open and stuff. If you represent at the state level, and then nationals will be October 2024 in Atlanta. So that's how I got into it.
I would say, went to the website. I absolutely loved the way they had it. I mean, it was the typical dresses and everything else, but they had like dirt on them, and they looked military.
Yes.
You said you could see the tattoos and the smoke they had going. I mean, I just love the way they set up the website, and
yes,
and it was awesome. It had that military feel to it.
Yeah, and then it does. I mean, I don't like, gets super heavy, but to put it on my head, it is. I have to cinch it down and like everything. But we talk about bigger the better. It is like you are like, they make you feel special walking away from that. And the green is just like, it's not my favorite color, but it's just, each one of us has our own division. And I mean, there's just something powerful about being able to like wear this sucker too. Like it's a whole different level of like G.I. Jane in a crown, I guess, if that makes sense. So,
as far as the other situation, there's a lot of veterans out there that have, done that same thing. They've tried, they've made attempts. I've gone down that path as well when I got out, and you should never be ashamed of talking about it, because the moment you stop, it's the beginning steps to go right back down that path again.
Right. Yeah. And slow, you know, it's one thing to have ideations and stuff like that, but it was another to just go through like everything that I did,
Yeah.
that I did go through with that. It's, I mean, ultimately because I think that's where really I tied in the reduce resources to reduce recidivism, because what I noticed is that I worked in the criminal justice department for many years as a probation officer, and I worked with Veterans Treatment Court. We actually, the Veterans Treatment Court here in Tarrant County made CBS national news on the recidivism reduction on that, and I had never been in trouble in my life. And so um, last year, VA, like my psychiatrist retired, and they knew a year in advance, and then did places, and they have doctors, and I have medication, and I was like, I need medication, and I'm like, they're community care, and it was like circle. And so then I wasn't on anything that was like a controlled substance, but I'm on, you know, these serotonin regulators, and people don't understand that, like, it just takes that missed dose. And that's why there's these, you know, long list of things that could happen, and here it is. So then I'm without it, I'm low dosed, or I've got too much, and I'm like, please help me. And nothing was happening. So I could call into work on a Friday, which was a Veterans Day, and it wasn't even clicking to me. And I'm like, I'm not okay. And I drive all the way down to the VA, which is about 30 minutes away from me in the southern part of the county. And I'm just like, it's Veterans Day. And I'm like, okay. So, and then from that point, the problem is that with as having PTSD at the level I do, it's considered like chronic. It's not technically a DSM-5 term, but it's considered super chronic, which can then be the symptoms can be misconstrued with having borderline personality disorder. So I disassociated. I don't even remember getting back home. Well, then next thing I know, I'm on Saturday being arrested for a DWI, and don't consume alcohol, right? Two drunk dudes. And at the time I'm like, I don't consume alcohol. Like and then here I am in the smaller town, and I get arrested, and I've never been in trouble in my life. And I'm cooperating. And then that's what I do for a living, right? Like you can see my badge, you can see my jacket, like I'm a probation officer, and I work with, you know, and so next thing I'm going through this, and I'm just like, all that did was expedite like the disassociation and the trauma, and then the just hitting rock bottom. And so then I get out on a PR bond because I've been sitting there. I don't remember eating. I don't remember, lots of blank holes, because again, I completely disassociated. And then next thing I know, I'm home alone, and I don't understand what's going on, and there's nobody here. It was me and the dogs, and I just made a dumb decision I took 26 and a half Xanax, and I had said goodbye to my children and sent them stuff again that I don't remember, and just was like, my coworker came from over, I don't know how far away. They ended up kicking the door down and calling PD again. And I was taken to the local hospital and admitted to the psych ward and just monitored. And from there, and it's just been again, a lot of the treatment that I've gotten, whether it's EMDR treatment or a lot of therapy or just in general, I don't have a lot of family left, if at any, that are even in the picture. But the people that I've worked with at Air Power Foundation, not only were they the base unknowingly behind things that saved my life in the past, ultimately they've become family, and did not let go, and didn't back down to making sure that I was okay, and my family's been okay, and just have constantly taken care of me. And I learned then that you don't have to be blood to be family, because the core of Air Power Foundation and everybody they're connected to include the other nonprofits, they've become my family, and it all has continued to come full circle. Like Taya Kyle, if you're familiar with her, not to be like, she intercepted me one time and was like, it's divine intervention, and you just have to accept it for that. And I have definitely done that. And so then I made sure I took a step back from the nonprofit stuff, and worked on me, and reached out to the resources. But that was the thing, that veterans like myself, I mean, I was arrested for something I didn't, my toxicology came back and there was no alcohol.
Yeah.
It cost me my job, my state job, my government job, that I was just shy of being vested in. And so it's just been, that's where kind of the platform tied in with that, and where Air Power Foundation continues to tie into the pageants and the nonprofit work. So.
Wow, I'm surprised they let you go before it was all settled? Because you would think that you would have had a lawsuit um, to go back on because they let you go under false precedents.
Oh, for work?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're still in the process of that. But so my attorney, that's not something we can't
Yeah.
talk about yet. But trust me, I'm ready to. So I just kind of tiptoe on the facts of what happened, and then
Yeah.
to be
There, there,
continued. But that is definitely true. I was in the hospital.
there's a lot of, it seems like that day there was a lot of people that failed you, you know. Um, they you know, they should have, when they blew you, they should have came up with, you know, no alcohol, which
They
should have
don't. That's the problem. A lot of the cops around here anymore in North Texas don't have breathalyzers. So,
really,
yeah, so it's you cooperate to do your blood draw or you don't. But in a blood draw, your toxicology doesn't come back for months. So you still get arrested whether or not. There was no option for a breathalyzer.
which
Otherwise, yeah, then I wouldn't have had an issue.
which then opens up for situations like this when when somebody's having a medical problem, you know.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, they just dropped you off and said, "All right, you're home." You know,
Yeah.
make sure you
Well,
make a court date.
yes. Yeah. And that was another thing is that being a small town, then you go into the county and all that stuff. And I had never, again, I'm telling you, I've never experienced that. So it was traumatizing in itself to be arrested for that. But then when I got to see the body cams and read the reports from 3 different police officers, I very well could have sued the city too. That's just not, I just don't even have the energy to. But one of them, which was a newer in training officer, was like, she just seems confused. We're going to try the field sobriety test, but I tell them like, I've got DV plates, I've got a handicap placard. They've asked if I've had surgery on my eyes or TBIs because then you're not supposed to do the eye test. And I'm like, yes, I have it medically documented. And they're like, then they wanted me to do the walk and turn, which I did fine on the videos. And then another one officer comes in and you got one telling you to do this and the other one telling you to do this. And that's like completely not legal. The reports was like, oh, she's confused, no alcohol, no, drug indication. One's like, oh, she smells like alcohol, she's, possibly drugs. And then another officer's report's completely different. And then it says she's unable to finish the field sobriety test because I've had hip surgery. I had it right after I got back from Afghanistan. That is damaged forever. I can't stand on my left leg and lift my right leg. Those muscles don't work. The hip flexor muscles don't work. So I can't stand on my right leg and lift my left leg because that stability is not there. Like it's damaged forever. And then I've had multiple, my whole right side of it, I've had multiple surgeries and I was like, I can't do that. And so then all of it was just a mess. And the sad thing is that ultimately it got dismissed, but I still have to wait for it to get expunged. Like I still have to wait 2 years
Wow.
for a DWI. And I went through all this court process for, if I would have done veterans treatment court and pled guilty for something that I didn't have alcohol in my system, it would have been expunged immediately. But instead I sat going through court and they're like, oh, we dismissed it. Not dropped it, not like dismissed it. So now I have to wait. And so then, I mean, ultimately I'm doing what I love with the nonprofits, and that's still volunteer work because again, I am with 100%, I can work, but ultimately I am still dealing with like neurological stuff that I'm battling. But the nonprofit work keeps me busy. Like you said, it's rewarding. My brain hurts at this point because it's such a busy time of year for us with Air Power Foundation and Holidays and Heroes. But there's not anything like Air Power Foundation that I found that's like, looking at the list as I'm trying to promote the fundraiser that I have on my advocacy page, people will call me from all over the United States and need help with different things. And if I can help or I network or reach out or, I mean, you name it, like that's why I kind of developed the page was for that. And my dentist will refer people and they call me and I've helped with stuff that I don't know, but researching and networking is my niche. And then Air Power Foundation has like 70 plus nonprofits across the United States. Because I did Pin Up for Vets as well. I was on that calendar in 2021. Miss December. That was a really cool experience. And was on NBC Nightly News for that. Which I know is not very Republican, but my late grandfather was like, I'm not watching that. And then he did and made me cry. But like Adaptive Training Foundation, like the rehabilitation for those that said we're like this girl right now, I've been watching the story. They told her she would never walk again and was wheelchair bound. 9 weeks into this program and she is walking She is walking. And Air Power grant funds them. Recovery Resource Council does addiction and veterans and EMDR, and Air Power Foundation supports them. Our base here, the NASJRB base, Holidays and Heroes, provides Christmas to active and reserve families with children. And we're doing something for single service members that live in the barracks. Like it's Air Power Foundation grant funds them. I mean, there's a lot that across, service dog, like you name it, if it's veteran nonprofit, they really do go through and vet it. And so Skyball is our big gala for the year, which is what I was raising money for. I don't benefit from that money. I get to go every year as an ambassador for Air Power Foundation to Skyball, and I love it, everything about it, because they do an enlistment. Like 60 people are enlisting in the military this year, and they'll do it there on the Rangers field or Globe Life field, and all the different things that they do, the challenge coins, and we get to hand those out. And then roll calls and luncheon that I think I went live last week, which kind of got extended, but over 500 veterans, most of them are veterans, show up, and they've paid for that too. The lunch, like you get lunch and you sit there at this huge table at this church gym, and veterans from World War II that are, wow. I think one just turned 100, will celebrate birthdays, they get a cake, and you get to sit there with veterans from my age to that and get to hear their stories, and Air Power Foundation's help with that. Like it's literally just a huge reason why. And then to me, that's these things, these types of resources is what reduces the recidivism and the mental health and the criminal justice and just in general. Like it's just the chairman, Wanda Cox, as the first female chairman for them. And she's been like really what roped me in to begin with. And she's been like family. Like she's absolutely amazing. And she is determined during her time as a chair to make this the best ever. And she has definitely not stopped at that. So I've not gotten a lot of traction on the fundraising thing, but I also am having a hard time. Like this is only my second podcast since all of this stuff unfolded. So I'm getting better at speaking. COVID, I guess, also kind of gave me that. The whole situation I went through myself really traumatized me from leaving the house, really traumatized me from just being able to kind of get back in. And I'm still in therapy weekly with the VA doing DBT, which is typically for borderline personality disorder, but it really works for a lot of people in different areas for everyday life. Everyday life, I would highly recommend DBT. And finding a good psychologist to do it with, obviously, too. I'm not the best client or patient when it comes to weekly therapy, but I haven't given up on it, and she hasn't given up on me. If I don't show up to my appointment, she's calling me, and she's like, I don't care if I just have to see you in bed. I need to know that you're okay. And that's really changed. You get those few and far between doctors, and Dr. McKinley at the Fort Worth VA cares about her patients and goes that extra mile for her patients. And ultimately, I think that's the only thing that kind of has kept me above water and got me swimming versus treading.
Yep. That goes a long way right there. I think a doctor that shows that they legitimately care can bridge that gap of not having the experiences and can relate to some of the things that happened to that veteran. Mm-hmm. They can bridge that gap with just showing they care. But there's so many horror stories that I have heard of soldiers pouring their heart out, and the doctor is checking their damn phone, looking at them, and I never had those kind of experiences, but I got tired of being asked. My issue has always been anger. Mm-hmm. I was a bit of a hothead before the Army, and the stuff I went through didn't help for sure. It just intensified things. Right. And that's anger is really the only emotion that the Army or the military teaches you how to deal. You deal with everything with anger. That's
right. It's a coping mechanism.
Yep. So, whenever she would want me, whenever I was having a bad day or something going on, she was like, well, did you, as soon as that happened, did you write it down? No, I wanted to beat his ass.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, stop anger. Yeah. I need a pencil and a pen. No, that's not how that works.
And she's like, well, you gotta document this stuff so you know how you feel. I said, you don't understand. 2 days later, I still wanted to beat his ass. Mm-hmm. It right. takes me a while when I get to that point to
come
just
back down.
and the meds have helped, and now I don't go quite to 0 to 60 near as fast, and I can think before I say the wrong things, and that's helped me in corporate America. I can tell you that much. But
Yeah. You'll have you ever seen Dave Chappelle's Corporate America skit?
I have not.
Oh, you'll have to look it up. That's funny. That's corporate America and what we feel on the inside and how we end up how we portray ourselves as veterans. I think that's like the epitome of, despite that it's Dave Chappelle and what he's portraying as it being like ghetto or hood or whatever, it's really just, I really think that veterans can relate to the anger that you face with that. And I agree. Like when they changed me from when you're on SSRIs and SNRIs, not once the VA ever switched me to an SNRA and put me on Prestige. And so now I'm in community care because of the lack of staffing. And so they put me on Prestige. And I feel like that's really helped with my anger. But with DBT, one thing I noticed, and Dr. McKinley said this a lot, is that us veterans, we're designed in everything we do to either all or nothing, 0 to 100.
Yep.
All or nothing in everything we do. And so that portrays over into our emotions. And so being mindful and being able to regulate your emotions is where DBT comes in. So like I said, even if it's for somebody with the PTSD at the level that I have it, or just even it's anger, right? Because I can relate with that, especially as a parent. Okay. Like as a parent, my husband's out of country right now for work. And so I'm like single momming it. And I'm like, I want to pull my hair out. I love you both, but like I find myself so angry because I'm just like, but the mindfulness and emotional regulation to just come back and like center it and just different things has really helped. And Dr. McKinley is very adamant about that. I mean, there's a workbook that is just, she finds those ways, right? Like what works for you. And I think that's what's important is finding that. But I just was like, everybody needs to go through DBT because, and I'm not a group therapy person. I don't do well with that because usually it's women's groups. And then you got one person's just got to poison everybody. And it's just like, no, I can't. But doing pageant stuff too ends up being therapy. They're not necessarily, they're obviously not all veterans. It's one of our smaller groups of contestants. But what's interesting is that you've got a mom that's like their child's autistic, or we're moms, or we're wives, or Texas went in and just what we call swept the floor. Like we had the honorable mention for America's Select Veteran was from Texas. And then Walker's going to kill me because I don't know what her title is, but she's from Texas. And so we're not far from each other here to link up, and we're trying to, but there's just like a huge, just having that like support and stuff like that too. But it really has made a difference. It's just a matter of like getting back out there. And I don't know. My biggest thing is I'm so focused on the nonprofit stuff right now. Like you said, it's good, bad, and different, but it's we're getting ready for this Christmas party for the base. I always want to say Marines because I'm so used to just being a Marine, the base service members. Getting that together. And then the Sky Ball is on November 16th it's at Globe Life Field. And I'm super excited. Terry Fader is going to be there this year. I don't know if you know who that is. So he's going to be there this year. And, but they, and I didn't know he's from Navarro County, which is where Corsicana is at, about full circle. And my grandmother was like, yeah, he's from Navarro County. And I was like, what? And so I've seen him before in the past, and he's as soon as Wanda became the chairman, he was like, I'm coming in. Robert Irvine, the chef, will be there. There's just some big people that have supported it for a long time. I mean, it used to kind of overlap with Gary Sinise Foundation. He's been there in the past when it was with American Airlines, but now we're kind of more of the Rangers side, which I think will also take a turn if the Rangers run tonight. I don't know if you're a baseball. I'm a huge I coach youth baseball. It's another nonprofit thing I do. Lord help my soul. And I'm not a Rangers fan, though. Let me just make sure that is clear, crystal clear. I am a Dodgers fan, diehard Dodgers fan, and I'm a Celtics fan, but I was here for the World Series in 2020 since Texas opened it up during COVID. And then, but I do support my Texas team, my Texans, my fellow Texans. And, I think it'll be a completely different year being on that field if they win tonight or win this series. So I'm excited as that game's going on right now. So, but it's, yeah, and coaching youth baseball too for the local baseball rec nonprofit has also been my spring season, we swept it. We finished first. We took both championships, and being a part of those children's lives. My assistant coach is also a Marine Corps veteran, and there's a lot of veteran kids there, right? Or active duty reserve, or just military connections, and being a part of that to develop. Because as a coach, I'm hard. The Marine comes out in me. I want you to love, but it's 98% mentally. I need you to love baseball. I need you to want to play. I need you to have fun, learn the sport, and go get it. And I really feel like that's what we did. And we've had a pretty good season this season too. It's just more fundamental in the fall. You get more teaching the basics, back to basics, since my son is still in 8U, but it's another thing I love. It's a volunteer thing. There's no payment for that. I mean, don't get me wrong, on the nonprofit, there are some things that I get compensated for, or just there's a plus, like I get to go to Skyball every year and be a part of that. But I try to help in that way. So I've got a couple more weeks to raise the money if I can. Like I said, it just strictly goes to them, and it was just really, they call it the influencer program is the option, right? If you have a big follower, but I wouldn't consider myself a social media influencer. That's not really, I don't think I fall in that category quite yet. But those that did, that's kind of what that, originally, like, to raise money. And then there are different packages you could do, but I just wanted to give back to those who give back, have continuously give back to myself and other military women, men and women that serve the country. So.
Well, I can definitely help. If you want to get on podcasts, I can definitely help you with that. I got a pretty good network of people that are podcasting. So to tell you a little bit about my organization, I have started we haven't got our 501c yet. We're in the building process. So I started an organization called Heroes Voices Media Foundation. And it started out I started a radio station for veteran musicians, veterans that wanted to become musicians. So I got tired of dealing with algorithms from Spotify and all these, where it was just so hard to get found and get noticed, and people buried. So I just started a radio station. I paid for the licensing through ASCAP and BMI, and I started a radio station, and I got music through these veterans, and started playing their music and promoting them and so forth. And so it's grown from that to we're now got a podcasting and streaming side where it's called MUPS, Military Unified Podcasting Streaming. So there's podcasters that come on. The goal from that is to help them with the same thing that helped me, is therapy, get them talking, create some live events to get them out of the house and get them surrounded with like-minded people.
Right.
And then we're going to start a third one called Warrior Words, for people that are writing books and bloggers, and help them with getting published and stuff like that. And so thus we started those three programs. So we started the nonprofit called Heroes Voices Media Foundation.
Okay.
That was a nonprofit with 3 programs underneath it. So there is a pretty good sized network of podcasters already. So I can definitely introduce you with several people if you would like to get on their shows. And
I would love that. I would absolutely love that. So when it comes to I'm neither a musician, because I can't carry a tune to save my life. I am totally tone deaf. But I am good friends with, I don't know if it's a specific genre, but I am good friends with TMR, the Marine rapper. And then there is,
to get a hold of him for so damn long.
Yeah, so I'll make the connection between you two. He is definitely hard to get a hold of, even as a friend. I can make that connection, but also with our Air Power Foundation and the Air Power Council, which is a civic organization kind of tied to that, created Air Power Foundation, I'm going to go completely blank on the 2 guys that came here. I actually got some of their autographs, actually, when they made a song for Don Graves, a World War II veteran from Iwo Jima, that was there at Iwo Jima when they raised the flag. Oh my gosh. The hippies. We're hippies.
Yep.
We're hippies. So I obviously know they're a little more on the popular side, but I think that maybe if that connection would help, then I would love to try to make that connection as well. And this is exactly why I do this stuff. I do like, once I commit to it and I do it, I'm comfortable. My anxiety makes me a little chatty sometimes, but I do really enjoy it because like you, I like to network and I think that people that do listen to these things and see them or watch them or go back are like, oh, I didn't know about that. Oh, I didn't know about that. And it's like, I was today old when I learned blah. I think it's important because some of those things are out there. Like there are veterans that writing helps them, right? And I can't, Janae from Perfectly Flawed. Have you read that book?
I have not.
So it's Homeless to Hero. I have the book in my room. She's in San Antonio. She's obviously written her book. As I was reading that, minus her being in LA, I really connected to, she's a big MST supporter, but she's an author. That's somebody that's like,
Now that you say that, I think I did connect with her. I think we're talking about her coming on the show, actually.
okay, yeah, she's awesome. She's a big MST, pusher, big political, like really, but wrote her book, right? Everybody's like, you need to write a book. And I'm like, if somebody else wants to write it for me, maybe I could, but you know what I mean? Like, but something that helps, right? Writing the book helps or singing it helps. There is so much like I connect with music on a lyric part, like that Save Me song by Jelly Roll.
Yep.
Just hits on a whole different level. And there was another song too that I just kept listening to it. And I feel like it's like, it was that song that came up for suicide prevention where he really talks about I don't want to live anymore. And then he talks about, I don't want to die anymore. Right. It like flips in the middle of the song. And that's one of the things that literally I listen to over and over and over into, because for me, I may not be able to listen to a podcast, but I can listen to music or I can listen to podcasts depending on what it is, or, you know what I mean? But like, I've been told like journal. And I'm like, I'm not a writer. Like that's anxiety provoking for me to try to write that down. I would rather just talk about, I mean, it's not easy to talk about either, but it's easier to talk than to write. Like kind of like stop what you're doing, write your feelings down. I'm like, I can't like.
Yep. No, I get it. Yes. So we're up to 3 channels. We got a mixed channel. It's called Vet Mix. We have a country channel called Simplify Country. And we have a rock channel called Ranger Rock Wave. So,
Okay.
And we named the channels based off of, so we got more Marines and Navy than we have anything else. So they got the first station. The majority of their music was country. So there's the Simplify Country.
Okay.
And, next was rock, and the next largest branch was Army. So we did Ranger Rock Wave for them. And then the Vet Mix was the original, what I originally started before we started any of this. And it was called Gunroom Radio. And I just changed the name to Vet Mix.
Okay.
So, and I partnered with a nonprofit that helped me through all this called Operation Encore. And they actually sponsored my podcast to help me with some of the costs for the second license we need through ASCAP for the copyright licensing. So
okay, well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see this grow. I know it's going to grow for you, and I'm excited for that. And I am very grateful as one veteran to another for what you've done to implement those avenues for veterans to share their creative side and their stories. So thank you for that.
Like I said, when I started getting artists on here, for me, it didn't matter. This became therapy for me. So I didn't care if one person listened or 10,000 people. It felt good to just repeatedly tell my story and talk about it. And then I went about my day, and I didn't care who watched it, And when I started getting artists on here, these guys were trying to put food on their table. It did matter who downloaded their music, and we're way past the era of CDs and stuff like that. And I can tell you what I pay in royalties. They get paid 0.00244 and a whole bunch of numbers after that per song I play. So to give you an idea, the month before, because I haven't got the numbers for last month, but I do remember the month before I played, or the 3 months, I pay quarterly. So the first 3 months, I played 18,000 songs, and my royalties that I came out to had to pay was $3.44.
Wow.
That's what went to the artist.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Like, I'm friends with TMR, but I don't understand the music industry at all. But that makes sense of why he pushes what he does and why he pushes out so many songs and why it's on those platforms. But I can only imagine if that's what you're doing, how much iTunes, Spotify, and all of them also take. Like, it's probably less
Yeah.
for them. And
And
that's
and they find loopholes. So there is loopholes to, like, if you're an independent artist and so forth, your music's considered free play. They don't have to pay anything.
right. Yeah, because I don't think TMR is with. He would be an independent artist
Yeah.
because they're not like label signed. Is that what? Okay, yeah. They would have to turn around and create their own LLC label, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah, that whole music industry is a whole different thing, but that's,
It's crooked.
yeah, that's crazy. But some of the people that work here too, then like what happens is, like, say, I don't know what the artists that are making that music, what their end goal is, but we're heavily tied. I mean, if you look up Billy Bob's especially for the countryside, I can't speak for like the vet mix or the rock, but the countryside, like the owners of Billy Bob's are heavily tied into Air Power Foundation. And there's all kinds of different up and coming artists that we go see there, and they sell it out, or we'll do a military night or whatever. Austin Alsop, I don't know if you're familiar with him from the Voice. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know much, but he's a huge supporter of Air Power Foundation. He plays there. He plays all over the place here, and does a lot of stuff with us or whatever. But that's like an example, like then helping them get those gigs. And so that's where stuff like this, like, I like doing podcasts because I like this full circle networking that comes with it.
Yeah. And that's so, the other thing too is I partnered with a group called Hero Stock, and they go around and they put on festivals or concerts and so forth. And this has been a great networking for me as well, because then some of these artists, they found artists from our radio station and were able to book gigs with those guys. Operation Encore has found artists that they didn't know about and helped them go to Zach Brown's Southern Ground writing camp.
Oh, cool.
So there's been a lot of good stuff that's came from it, and I'm happy for it. It's great, and it's been great adventures for them. Some Texas, as a matter of fact, one of the Texas artists, maybe you've heard of her, Jen Ford. She got to go to Operation Encore. Reached out to her, and she got to go to Zach Brown's, or she will get to. I think it's actually in November. But
okay. Oh yeah. So because Jen Ford, not that I've met her in person, but she has linked up with the podcast owner or founder, however you say that, 2200 Taps. I don't know if you're that podcast. Pam is the background musically inclined, has a degree in stuff in that, and that's what she does. So I think she was like overseas doing something too. And so she's a really good contact for that stuff when it comes to artists. Because it'd be more of the behind the scenes of what y'all do. And I know she's worked with Jen quite a bit. So yeah, I've seen her. I feel like I've seen her in person, and I just didn't know, because if I'm there, I'm typically working like when the War Hippies were there, I was typically there to help Air Power Foundation. And it was a big fundraiser, and the money went to the base. We actually, with Air Power Foundation, the council, Holidays and Heroes, we are all doing, I think it's like 500 families this year are getting, whether you're a veteran, reservist, as long as you apply for it, you're getting a week worth of groceries and a Thanksgiving meal through Tarrant Area Food Bank. And so that was and that's where I got the autographs. I had them, the paper copy of the Don Graves song. The artists were there sitting with him, and I asked them to sign it. They auctioned off the other autographs for like $3,000, and I've got it over here ready to be filed or put in a piece of plastic or something, that the artist. And it was, because it's a good song. It's his story quickly. But Don Graves also did Smiles with TMR, about Irish eyes, and that was on his way to Ireland. And so, yeah, North Texas is a big music thing, obviously, too. So yeah, I will be happy to make those connections, and I would love those podcast connections. Because I definitely like getting back into it. I really think it is therapeutic for me, to talk about that. And then it also is to talk about, I don't so much like talking about myself, but I've done it. Like I think my most in-depth one is with 2200 Taps. because this was brand new to me. Miss Veteran America required you to do a lot of social media, a lot of podcasts, a lot of everything. And then I think it just was like so much that it suffocated me. So it was kind of like, okay, now do you get back into it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it definitely helps for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that would be no problem. There'll be there'll be several people that'll reach out to you, I'm sure. And I'm sure they already planned on it, because several people, they see my list of people, and then we all kind of share. We'll see who somebody else had, and we'll be like, oh, so then we'll reach out to them, and we all do kind of share.
Yeah, and I love that. So it's definitely yeah, I mean, I love it. And then if there's something different or something that they catch that they want to hone in more on one topic than the other, whatever their podcast base is, then I'm flexible in that aspect. I kind of went through it all, and I have gone back and listened to the 2200 Taps one with there's one that's Miss Veteran America specific, and then there's another one that's my life, and that was probably the first and longest one I did, and it was hard to do that, but I did, and it pissed a lot of people off in my family who no longer talk to me, and I'm like, it was the truth though. Like I didn't tell my story because that was you don't get a crown. Okay. Whether it's Miss Veteran America or America Select Veteran, or you don't get a crown because of a poor pity me story. That's not how that works. My goal is that there is another veteran, there's another person, there's another little girl that can hear that and know that I fucking survived that shit.
Yep.
You're a piece of shit for blaming me for, the stuff that you did, or that to this day that you cut me off for. And you think that being a pedophile is okay. And as a victim that I'm just supposed to keep my mouth shut. Like, that's what I love about Janae. I bought her shirt. It says, the front of my shirt, the tank top I got that I will wear the shit out of, says they teach us that silence will save us, but it won't.
Yep.
And it was like that in the military. It was like that as a kid. It was like that. And I was just like I don't want to identify as a victim. I'm a survivor, and fuck you and everybody else that has a problem with that. And if that means that family turn their other cheek and think that I said what I said, because it's the fucking truth. It's my truth. And you can kiss my ass.
Absolutely.
So,
and that is a fact. I've seen it with my own eyes. The military, and I don't care what branch, I really, it happens military wide. Sexual assault gets covered up, and I don't care if it's guy on guy, girl on girl, guy on girl, it will be covered up.
Oh, I know. Even after all these years, what I didn't think would ever haunt me was I dealt with my very first staff and CO in Japan. There was an issue. I spoke up. Another female spoke up. They took hard evidence and hard evidence only, came back, debriefed everybody, told us what was going to happen and this, that. He should have not been able to re-enlist. He should have been removed from the shop. Instead, it got worse and it got toxic. And then the Marine Corps is small. So not that it's already a small world type situation, but then it spread like wildfire, his story, his truth. And next thing you know, I'm being harassed. And there's like, you only got promoted because you did A, B, C, D. And I'm like, no, I never got meritoriously promoted, what we call it in the Marine Corps. I earned that to get promoted, to be selected. I earned it because I didn't want to be given to me. And so it haunted me my whole damn career. Multiple other things happened. I go after Afghanistan. I remember getting on my motorcycle to go to a medical appointment, and there was a retirement ceremony for our command. Just briefly, this bike pulls up. Well, as a motorcycle rider, I'm just like, we know everybody's bike. This is our parking spot, right? We have our designated bike parking spot for our unit, division, whatever, and pulls up, and I can't see anything. It's the hat, the helmet, the hat, the jacket, all that stuff. I'm like, what the heck? And so I hear his voice. And at the time, my previous married license was Dixon. And he was just like, look who's looking good, Dixon. And I remember, I'll never forget that I literally felt like my combat boots melted into the asphalt. I was frozen. Like I was stuck, because that voice forever, right? It haunted me in Afghanistan. It just was constant of what he destroyed.
Yeah.
Takes off his jacket. I see his name tapes. He's promoted. He's been in trouble again for all the stuff. And then I'm like, all these years later, I'm like, whatever, going about my business. I get on my bike. I get out of there. I don't see him again. I go to do that suicide prevention reunion, and I'd be damned if this motherfucker is not in damn North Texas. And he is trying to get into this reunion. And thankfully, somebody helping me with it, her name is very similar to mine, even though there's no relationship whatsoever. And she's quite a bit older and not a veteran. And he's chewing her out and treating her a certain way because he thought she was me. But we ended up having to hire one of the MCs, like veteran MCs for security to make sure that he didn't just show up to this thing. Because I was like, at first I was like, let him show up. Once I tell my story and they find out that's who it is sitting in the crowd, because I've never just shared his name. Like it's not worth it. I'm not saying his name, it's not worth it, but, it won't go over well. And they're just like safety reasons, let's just keep him out of here. And we did, but I was just like, out of all the places, he's right here north of me, probably like 30 minutes. And I thankfully haven't, overlapped with him. But I'm just like, what are the odds? What are the damn odds that he retired, by the way, after all that, still got to retire, got all those benefits, and who knows what over with his relationship. And I'm just like,
Yep.
And it did. It would have been way better if I would have just been quiet, if I would have just never said anything.
Yep. I had a good friend, man. She was like my sister, and we were in Korea together. And one Saturday morning, she had like a little party that Saturday night. It was a Sunday morning, I guess, actually. And it was her, some other girls, a couple guys. It was all in her room drinking. And the first sergeant went through the rooms, or through the barracks, and her room, one of the guys had got up in the middle of the night and left her door unlocked because it was dead bolted. And the first sergeant walked in, and when she woke up, his hand was down her pants. And when she woke up and he seen that her eyes was open, he said, "Hey, come out in the hallway. I want to talk to you." When he stood up, one of the guys on the top bunk goes, he was still drunk. He goes, "You look like my first sergeant." And he kind of passed back out. They went out in the hallway, and he goes, "So are you going to get with me or what?" Now, me and her have been making rank like pretty quick.
Right.
And I was on the boxing team, the post boxing team, and he was the coach. And I didn't know that he had a thing for her. And she had explained that she was engaged to another guy. And she told me about it when I woke up. And I told her, I said, "You need to say something. You need to report it." And I was naive. I believed that if you went to the police, justice would be done. And, like I said, this was my first duty station, so I was young. I came in the Army to grow up, and boy, I got a lesson.
Yeah.
And she wouldn't report it, so I reported it. And the end result was she got an Article 15. And 3 days after that, he PCS'd 7 months early from Korea. So CID called me down there to, wanted my story about what happened. I told them. And after it was over with, I asked them, I said, "Is there even anything y'all can do to him now?" And they said, "What do you mean?" I said, "He just PCS'd. He's gone." They said, "He doesn't PCS for like 7 months." I said, "He just got on a plane and PCS." Him and his wife, because his wife was there too.
Lord, yeah, that's how it was with the first. He was unaccompanied, so his wife wasn't with him. But like, I was a baby, like you said. We joined to grow up. I was 18.
Yep.
18. And he was already an E6. So, I don't know. And I also too, like in the Marine Corps, that just wasn't my thing. Like they always had like, there's this type of female Marine or there's this type of female Marine. And I was like, or can we not be either? Can we just mind our business and do our job and go on about whatever? But no, hell no, they're not. Now, I will say that with everything that's unfolded with the Vanessa Gillian and also something Janae's been behind, in the things that I have heard feedback from current serving women that is treated very different, and they are really trying to hammer that in with the new implementation of the congressional stuff that's gone through, and just in general, especially my concern is that like it's been males and females, right? I think it like went viral that some male Navy something went to meet some child like at the commissary or something like that, that they really have like, we are in an era where people are standing up. I just don't know how true that is if you're in the depths of the military, because I wouldn't be surprised if there's like more dead bodies at Fort Cavazos. So
Yeah. Well, I could see that at some point they're going to have to, with all the transgender policies and everything else that's changing as well. If they don't do something, there is going to be a lot more hate crimes and rapes and all sorts of things that are going to happen,
right.
because you go out in the field, man. Sometimes people do there's some very cruel hazing that happens. That's all.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah. Not just hazing, but then you get out in outside the wire in combat zones, especially because I mean, I don't want to say I ignore the news, but I just can be naive to what's going on because I won't turn the TV on. My inattentive ADHD is like squirrel. So I won't sit still, but just to see that, like, I don't know what's going to happen overseas. I don't know what's going to come of that whole situation, or the detailed aspect of why we would back certain things, but or have our hands in the middle of it. Like I said, just that's not looking into it yet. Is that outside the wire, there's just people change over there. People change. I don't know whether it's because they're delirious, the trauma, or the real person comes out. But that was the other situation I had in Afghanistan. Like somebody I thoroughly trusted. Like I would have thought that I truly was okay being in combat with, and that I would, if it was my life or theirs, that they would save me type thing, and damn near killed me.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
it's there are just some very sick, twisted people. And yeah, we're talking about hazing, like even this, what people don't think are that big of a deal, because it's just like the military, right? Having that like thick skin and things that are okay. They were like trapping the rats that were in Afghanistan. Let me tell you, out of everything being nervous in Afghanistan, I could have died there, and I wasn't near as freaked out as the rats that are in Afghanistan. Camel spiders, whatever, but the rats that would come crawling through there would be like, I'd be in full uniform, combat gear, a loaded M16, and I'm like, my feet are in my chair because there's this like New York sewer rat thing running around, and I'm like, oh, but they would trap them and then sacrifice them in our shift change, and I'm like, that type of stuff is like, that's serial killer stuff. And y'all, before crime podcast came out, excuse me, and then like, just that's some serial. I'm like, I don't want to. That's horrible. But if you can do that, it's like that's the point of the serial killer. If you can do that, what does that lead to on the psychological level? Like you've got some things just not clicking anymore, and so it really has to change. And I think it has. I just think that they will have to continue as they allow things. They're going to have to continue to adapt and evolve in that, and it's going to take a lot, because certain people just are old school and have mentalities and have opinions, and for some reason we've lost that in society. People can't I'm one of those that can have a complete opposite view on everything and just listen to you and learn something today, versus like putting you down or whatever. I mean, if you feel a certain way and you're adamant about that, then okay, like I got you. And that's, until that comes back around to being a norm or common, it's going to be an uphill battle.
I like to tell people I'm politically homeless. I don't, unless it affects our troops, I don't really get it, because
and sometimes it's not even political. It's just opinions about just, I don't know, what dog food to have. You know what I mean? Like who has better Mexican food? I don't know. Just like sometimes it's not. It's just like the most generic conversations that people just can't have anymore because they just have opposing views on it. I'm like, okay, I like Doritos and you like Cheetos. So I don't know.
But sometimes that's what I like about this podcast. Sometimes I'll see something weird and I'll reach out to him to be on the show. I seen a guy that his therapy was fire walking. So he gets like hot coals and has a ceremony and walks barefooted on hot coals. I'm like, hell yeah, let's talk about that. I'm never gonna do it, but hey, come on, tell me what it's like to walk on some
Yeah,
hot
yeah.
coals,
That's kind of cool. Yeah, that's kind of cool.
you know. So we're trying to work out a date. We'll see if I can get him on. But it has nothing to do with being a veteran. But he says there's therapy in it. I say there's third degree burns. But
Yeah, well, but so coming from a psychological level, there is just kind of like they have, Lord, I can't think of it. They do different like types of simulation. You have like a TENS unit, right? That can be physically relaxing. And then I have one and I can't even think of what it's called. Alpha stem. And you literally can put that, like connect one probe here or wherever. And then it's different than TENS because it's a direct current versus whatever the TENS unit does. So there's a lot of different things that can mentally change you because it's physically affecting you. And so pain, good, bad, or indifferent, might be a coping mechanism, or it might trigger, I would think neurologically that would trigger something else by burning my feet, I guess. But for some, like a healthy way of cutting, I guess, I know that might not be a good way to say that, but people usually will cut to disportion that pain and clear their mind. So if there's a health, I don't know. Now I'm curious. What is the therapy behind it?
I can relate to it. So before I reached out to him, I did research. It is a real thing. There is a ceremonial therapy behind it. It's got something to do with like mind and yeah. And it does say that because it's cold, that cold dissipates heat, so it doesn't create third degree burns.
Yeah.
It does burn you, but it's not third degree, And I can relate because when I was going through depression and everything else, that's when I got the majority of my tattoos because I did enjoy the pain.
Yeah.
It was that's how I felt something. So I can relate, but it just seems really weird to go through all that work. I mean, I think a tattoo's better. I'll go with a tattoo over a bed of fire. So
Yeah. Yeah, but some of it for me, like when I get my tattoos, and then like I'm not one of those that will pierce my face, despite like society and everybody's got like multiple nose piercings right now, especially females, and I'm just like, I don't know, I won't do that. But my ears are pierced up the sides, if that makes sense. And so, but I have lots of tattoos, but I thoroughly enjoy listening to the tattoo gun and feeling the tattoo gun. And so then all of those things are what they teach in DBT is mindfulness. It comes back to that mindfulness and emotional regulation because you're shifting it to something else. And so that is if your focus is on balance and whatever other skills it takes to walk on hot coals, I would think that that's going to come into play. I mean, could you imagine, let's think about this real quick. Could you imagine being at your max anger for whatever reason and not and you taking 24 to 48 hours to come back down? And I say that because I know what it's like to just feel like the gasket's blown and it repairing and putting the gasket back on and repairing the parts. It's like you almost feel like you're having to shove it back down when you need it to release and stay away. But if you had that feeling, right? The feeling that we're trapped and we're angry and we're exploding and we're at our max like anger point. But whatever the skills that it takes to walk on the coal, like your focus has to be shifted to that. If you stop mid anger, max anger, and went and did that therapy, because you do respond to pain, right?
Oh, yeah.
So
you're not thinking about being mad no more.
You're not, but you're also the clarity of you're just focusing on so much other things and the clarity of that. Then I can just imagine and because I enjoy pain myself and knowing like the tattoos, how much that just brings me back to my center because now we've removed that. And anger, and I say that too, because anger is one of those that's a very difficult response to overcome, right? It's like it makes you feel crazy and it makes you more angry and it confuses you and it adds in all these additional things, and coping with anger and understanding how to generate that level of energy into something else might take walking on coals. Just
Yeah. I so want to get off these meds, and that's the last demon I think I need to beat. If everything else I think I've got under control. I'm not going to say healed, but I've got tools now in my toolbox to control and deal.
right.
But anger is still one of those things, and I have joined a group therapy that I have found that I liked. It's called the Warrior's Mind Way. And it is similar to the VA's system, but it's put a different way, you know. So I do like it. It has helped some. I'm not there yet, and
Right.
but yeah, but
Yeah.
I don't know if
There
I meds bad enough to walk on hot coals though.
Yeah. Well, and there's always something else for somebody else. But I learned during that time of last year going through that, I didn't realize that I wouldn't say that was on so many meds, but it was like, here's this med and there's these problems. And so I'm going to put you on this, I'm going to put you on that and put you on that. So then what I did is I ended up doing what they call a gene site test, where they swabbed my mouth and my DNA. And then it broke down those psychological medications, and come to find out, I should have never been on this, right? That's a red flag. I'm not supposed to be taking that medication. It was duloxetine, Cymbalta, by the way, which has not had a good history, period. That shit shouldn't even be on the market. But that wasn't something I'm taking. So if that's the case, why are we going through trial and error on medications when you could do, now, mind you, there's still gonna be a lots in the green, and it may work, it may not, but at least it's not in the red, right? At least eliminate some of them. But you were giving me one thing, and then you offset it with Wellbutrin. Wellbutrin ended up causing me more anxiety than what I already had. And then you had me on Xanax, and then you had me on this to combat this, and then I had fatigue. So then you get me amphetamine, and I'm like, you've got me on a benzo and an amphetamine and an SSRI and a whatever the hell this is, and all this stuff, when this whole time y'all could be doing these gene site tests.
Yep.
Very thorough. It shows me how I metabolize medication. So in my case, if I metabolize it too quickly, I have to have a higher dosage, or I have to take it more, or a slow release. It really helps you narrow that down, because otherwise what I learned is that, one, it's super toxic. I feel it doesn't do well with like my body's issues anyways, neurologically, when I'm on these medications, because it's not good for your system, whether it's your liver, your kidneys, your gut, whatever. On the holistic side, you should be able to cope. Now, we may not ever be able to replace our serotonin levels when it comes to depression. We may not ever be able to completely replace something that a chemical that might influence the anger, but we should be able to live a life more holistically to cope versus being on the medications, because then the long-term effects of that, or coming off of those some medications, I've experienced raging anger, and it's like, then you punish me for my behavior, and then versus that. So that's something I would like to see. Like, I don't understand why Community Care is the one that did the gene site, and then we went from there. And all these years I was on medication I shouldn't have been on.
Yeah.
That led to all this other to DWI and losing my job and again being where I'm at today. Again, I'm grateful for where I'm at, and I'm grateful for what I'm doing, and those that stood by me and are here to help me through all this. But it's just like, it sucks because I had to go through it. It sucks because out of all the trauma I've endured in my life, I can't tell you, I truly can't put into words how traumatizing last year was for me. Like,
Yeah.
I am, as we come up on that day, I'm so scared that I completely I disassociated so bad that I was an out of body experience. I remember seeing my body from outside and not knowing what the hell was going on, or who I was, or what I was doing. And I don't ever want to experience that again, or driving that I'm going to get pulled over for a DWI and not. And it's like, what do we do? Like, and I don't know. I think that's where podcasts come into play for this, because there's somewhere else, another veteran or another person somewhere out there that's gone through this same damn thing.
I've got so I had 2 podcasts ago, I had a person, I'm slowly getting into researching psychedelics and
Mm-hmm.
being very selective of who I let come on, um, because I don't want the wrong type of person coming on, because there is a difference between psychedelics for, hey, let's go take some Molly or something and go have a good time at a bar, versus a treatment and somebody that knows the real treatment theory and therapy behind it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I did some research, and I had a guy come on two shows ago, and he is extremely knowledgeable, and he answered a lot of my questions I had on it.
Right.
I'm not there yet as far as saying I'm sold. You know, I've got another lady that's coming on, and she has a degree in psychedelics and a type of therapy. I don't remember. It's got way
Mm-hmm.
more syllables in her title than I can say.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't remember the date. It's my show's so booked up, um, but she's coming on too, and I just there has to be a more natural way, because my body just does not react good. I'm a pansy. Colds and medicines I don't handle very well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Typical guy, you
Yeah.
know. And I was just talking to my shrink. They got me on Topamax, a very low dose of Topamax, and she asked how I've been, and I'm like, I just feel like I can't focus.
Mm-hmm.
That I know I've got a lot of things going on. I work, 60, 70 hours a week at work. I'm podcasting 3 days a week on average. I DJ the radio station on Saturday nights, and the rest is spent building my websites and the nonprofits and everything else that goes on with the nonprofit stuff. And um, so I know some of it is that there's a lot going on,
Yeah. And your plate's full.
but I said it's not all that.
Right.
I said there's times where I'm trying to talk and I can't think of, I know the word I want to say, but I can't get it out of my mouth. So I
Mm-hmm.
have to use a different word that makes me sound dumber, and it pisses me off. Um, I lose focus on what I'm talking about, and I start rambling. And she said, "Well, there's people that say that Topamax causes some cognitivity." She said, "Let me look at this book." She said, "I don't use Topamax very often, but I know you're on it. Let me." And she pulled out this book, and I kid you not, word for word of what I told her I'm experiencing, she
Is
read it.
Topamax. Yeah.
Except she said it happens for people that are on a dose higher than 200 milligrams, and I'm on an extremely low dose. So even though I didn't Google this shit,
Right.
yeah, and even though I told you word for word, she's just like, well, it'll probably go away. It shouldn't be happening to you because you're on such a low dose.
See, and that's where that with the gene site thing is that's what textbook says. That's what the trial said prior to getting proved. That's the data that they were able to condense and put in the book to put the side effects in pass FDA laws or whatever the case is. When I did this gene site thing, the metabolism, where I metabolize stuff so fast, I need to be on a higher dose. But even the smallest dose of something can affect you differently than how it would affect me because we're two totally different people, right? So even though that's a common side effect for over 200, if you are more sensitive to those types of medications or medications in general, you are going to most likely have those side effects no matter what the dosage is. For me, I don't have an addictive personality. You can put me on benzos and amphetamines and whatever, and I decide to take them or I don't take them. Or after 7 years of being on Xanax, when I wasn't on it anymore, I didn't have a problem. And I still only took it as needed. I never took the full dosage of what there was. I mean, it's very much the black and white, that I never abused anything. I didn't have an addiction but I do metabolize the stuff. I just was like, well, that sucks. I metabolize it. It's not working. And I just keep pushing through my day. But that's a prime example of, just because a textbook says that doesn't mean, it sounds like that may just not be the medication for, if it's at a low dose and you're having these side effects. And what I notice is that they'll put you on this and this and this and this and this. The psychiatrist sends me hydroxyzine for anxiety.
Yep.
It's antihistamine.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
knowing that that Soma and is on my list, or Crisperdal, which is the generic brand, but Soma is on my list of medications. Hydroxyzine and Soma cannot be taken together. But do you think she stopped to even check that? Why are you going to ask me about this list of medications? She still has me on that. I don't take it because I personally know that I don't. And they never look at that. So it might, Topamax also might interfere with something that you're taking, but it very well could just be that you're sensitive to that medication and it's not for you. That's where those green, yellow, and orange or red, I think, flagged. Like Cymbalta was in the red for me, right? But then Prestique was in the green. So let's try Prestique. But I should have never been on Cymbalta. But y'all just kept pushing Cymbalta for years and years, and higher dose, lower dose, and take me off in this. And you made me lose my mind. Like,
and I think that's because they have a cookie cutter approach.
Mm-hmm.
This didn't work. We tried this cocktail, and then they have approved cocktails, and they just keep going until they find something that works.
Right. But those cocktails aren't always the best, because putting me on Wellbutrin to offset the side effect of Cymbalta made my anxiety worse, because Wellbutrin wasn't something that was supposed to be for me. Now, does Wellbutrin and Cymbalta typically work together as a side? Absolutely. But I shouldn't have been on Wellbutrin because it doesn't help with anxiety. Yeah. It caused, so it's like they're not really taking that into effect. And I can only imagine that if a pharmacist can tell you this, that there's a generator that can put your medications in there and go, oh, these two don't mix. So if you give me your list of medications and then you've got this, and you're dealing with this, like, there's a reason. Now, a pharmacist can tell you that. A pharmacist can answer that stuff, but they're not the prescribers. They're the ones that just hand it to you.
Yep.
And so unless you ask, you're not going to know. And thankfully, they love their job and they're genuine in that type of, answer those questions, but you may not know to even ask those questions. So, but there's a lot of people, especially veterans that I know, that are in areas that psychedelics are okay to take legally. But even here in Texas, as a veteran with PTSD, I went and saw a pain management doctor, and they gave me the 2 different type of CBD with THC, or the gummies with THC, the Stratera. I don't know. There's 2 different strands of THC, I guess. One's like daytime, one's nighttime. Stratera is definitely not it. That's another drug. Indica, I think, is what it's. I don't know. I suck. Anyway, so the thing is that, like, I was legally prescribed that stuff, and I had to go pay and pick it up, and and stuff like that. But then as I'm taking, first of all, those things taste like you're chewing grass, and it's gross to me. But it's like, okay, but the state job that I had, if I was to get drug tested, I would be in trouble. So it's like, but it's a prescription. So how do you, people are like, oh no, you're okay. And I'm just like, me, before all this unfolded, I'm like, no, I'm not. So I wouldn't take it. And plus it's so expensive. But there's also the researchers that are doing that, especially with veterans, and controlled research, that is the MDMA, right? The byproduct of that, which is also, from my understanding, so correct me if I'm wrong, or if is more the holistic base of MDMA, right? Grown, that has really transformed lives. So I'm definitely a big supporter of the holistic aspect. I've heard lots of people say, microdosing has helped in that aspect. And coming from somebody who neurologically, there's not a lot of medications that you can take to help with nerves. Gabapentin, I don't respond well to. And then there was Lyrica, and I came off of that, and I ended up in the hospital because it was what I thought. What a movie shows you a heroin addict withdraws, that's what it was like coming off of Lyrica, even though I was being tapered off of it. I remember being so sick for so long coming off that medication, but it helped. Marijuana, on the other hand, or THC, helps with that pain, does help with the neurological pain, and it helps with the mood. And it helps the appetite. When you have ADHD and you're on amphetamine, guess what I don't get to do? People are like, oh, you look great. I'm like, I look like I need to eat. Like, I'm skinny. I've lost a lot of weight. I appreciate that, but I've lost my muscle mass of everything because you've got me on an amphetamine. And you want to talk about angry? Adderall didn't work. Ritalin didn't work, but they make you take all this stuff first. The VA does before they'll pay for Vyvanse. Well, now that Vyvanse has got a generic brand, they've now circled me back around to Vyvanse when Vyvanse worked from the beginning, and there was a history that the other ones didn't, but they made me go back on it, and I had to suffer through those medications just to go back on the one that worked. And that's another, just like, we could go on all day about the failures in those systems, but I truly believe, and I'll go back and look for that episode because I one thing that I do like is educating myself, and what sucks is that I'm so chicken shit in my position that I'm just like, okay, can I take something? How am I going to react? Does it need to be in a controlled environment? I'm a big research person. So it's like, if I'm going to be the person to take that, is it legal? Is it safe? And I'm obviously in a very Republican area. So it's like, what?
And his answer was, his recommendation to his clients was, if you're one of those that, you have to be there to let the dog out, you got children, you can't have the 7-8 hours to be alone and be in a ceremonial place of privacy, microdosing is the way you want to go. He said, or if you're afraid of, jumping into it, he said, then microdosing is the way you go. He said, both ways will work. It's just how fast do you want it to work? Do you want to get in and be healed, or do you want to just dabble your toes in it and slowly get healed?
Right.
He said to you, it's up to the person, But he has, if you go, I think I put it in the Spotify link too. I think I put his website in the Spotify link too. But he's got a website with a whole the differences and all that stuff and recommendations and so forth. But it was a good episode.
Yeah, I definitely like to listen to it. I just like to hear it too. I mean, I would read it too. Like I said, I just like the education part, because even if I might be too scared to be there now with it, as it's, I am open for, yeah, I'm definitely open to recommending it to other people. I mean, I know lots of people that do it here, and it's like, also, I guess also because Corsicana is kind of the ghetto. It's a little on the hood side. Corsicana sits in Texas on I-45 between the border, Houston, Corsicana, Dallas, and up further, right? So then it was major drug trafficking, lots of gangs, lots of whatever. So a lot of it there, especially like now too, is even scarier with like, I look on the Tarrant County medical examiner's list sometimes, super weird thing that I do because it's public information on who dies for random causes. And I cannot tell you how bad. The other day we were looking, somebody committed suicide, unfortunately, and I was looking for their name to see if it was posted on there at the request of somebody else. And it's like all these teenagers committing suicide. And then it was like, or the fentanyl overdose, right?
Yeah.
This stuff. So it's like super, like, where is it coming from? Is it controlled? Like, that's why I spent the money at the time that I did to see the doctor I did to get the prescribed, to do it the right way with the THC gummies, and they really helped. But now I'm just like, one, I'm broke. I don't have the time. I don't have the money to do that. Pageant stuff isn't exactly cheap, but it's worth the cause. And it's like, but then with microdosing, it's like, okay, it's the people that I do know. It's like, oh, so-and-so grows it, and it comes in a chocolate this or that. And I'm like, I don't know. We're too close to Mexico, and we have this fentanyl thing. And I'm like, we don't carry Narcan around here. So I'm like, but the longer we suffer, then like the worse that the whole thing gets. I mean, I'm on a pretty good set. Like you said, I am on a very minimal medication. I take the Prestige, and then I take Buspar, or Buspropron. I take those two, and those are my biggest ones. I do have the Vyvanse, but if I'm good and I'm on a routine, I won't take that because I'm a coffee drinker, so I have to drink decaf if I do that. But it's weird, like my ADHD with the inattentive. If I get up, drink coffee, I'll go back to sleep. Like that's. But I was taking like Adderall, not only to make me angry, I could take it was like 54 grams slow release or extended release Adderall, and I'd go right back to sleep. Methylphenidate, same thing. I can go right back to sleep. And so I metabolize it too quickly. And so then you need a higher dose, but then my anxiety is whatever. So I've got emergency anxiety medication, but for the most part, it's just mainly the 2/3 meds, and it's done pretty good. It's just that if I have to take the amphetamine, I guess 5-ance is still considered amphetamine. I think it's controlled. Is then I just struggle with eating, and I don't have muscle mass, and I don't work out, and I don't, and then I deal with the psychological miscommunication that my heart rate is up. So it's automatically contributed to anxiety, but that's not necessarily the case.
Right.
And that's where EMDR comes into place. If you've ever heard of that, EMDR is a great, I swear by it. Like that, ultimately that I would like to find somebody that's good at that with veterans to do that again. Because it helps process that trauma thought that causes the fight, flight, or freeze, or your physiological response, and it reprocesses your hippocampus, amygdala, prefrontal cortex. Like it legitimately reprocesses that, and I've seen it happen. And I know it feels like magic or seems like magic, but it really works. And that's kind of what happens, right? I take the medicine, I feel like I'm having a panic attack, but the reality is that it just physiologically is making my heart rate faster. I'm not having a panic attack, but it's associated with the two. How do we break that barrier? How do I cope and understand that it's just what an amphetamine is going to do? It's going to make your heart race and not freak out and shut down. So,
absolutely. It all goes back to like what we said. There's going to be, the VA does do some good stuff, but it's a big program, and there's going to be big holes in that net, and people are going to fall through.
Right.
So, and that's where the nonprofits like what me and you do, we either are there to help or we know somebody that can.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I love about it, and networking, and what I love about remembering when I got forced to do podcasts, what I liked about that. Because it was, and dogs are therapy too. This is so I have a female, and then like I said earlier, my late service dog Coco had passed away from aggressive cancer. Again, also helped by lots of nonprofits to try to save his life, but still lost him. But out of nowhere, Holidays and Heroes, the founder and another lady went in. There was still the same lineage, breeder wise, from Sunny Days with the Z Labs, who was out in California, but now is out in Arkansas, like somewhere in Arkansas. Texarkana. Yeah, Arkansas. I mix Arizona and Arkansas up. Lineage 4 generations down, and I'd be darned if I flew out there on miles and then got there and they had paid for him, and he's gone through some service dog training, but this summer just got so hot that we kind of took a few steps, but I just couldn't do what I needed to do outside.
Yeah.
But with my husband being out of the country for work right now, he's definitely my rock. He's taught to ground his mobility, so he does stay on my right side for my leg because it buckles, but he's also taught to ground. So if that heart rate does get up, you'll notice that he responds to that. And I sleep with a weighted blanket, a very heavy weighted blanket on top of that. But then he'll put pressure on me if I can't get it to come down, if that makes sense. So it's another. And it's not just me, obviously. There's other people I know that have benefited from them, but that's just another example of I didn't ask for it. I just showed up and they did it. And it's just the power of it. And his AKC name is Martin's When Worlds Collide, because he's so.
Yeah.
Compliments of my old coworker, John English, who's a writer. A great, great guy, Irish man, been a adult probation officer for many, many years, big sports guy, was just a great friend, great coworker. And he helped me come up with that. And that's how it worked. Cause he was abruptly born on September 21st. And I lost Coco August 23rd of that same year. So it was pretty good, but
yeah. I'm a huge dog fan. I've got a blackmouth cur, and she's not a service dog, but she's been there. When I owned my trucking company, she was in my truck with me. And
really, my grandfather that just passed away was also a veteran, and that's been hard on me. My step grandmother cut me off. I'm having to deal with trying to find an attorney because she won't file the will. That's a whole different thing. And he was I have my grandmother, his ex-wife, and him. That's it on my side. And I lost him abruptly on July 21st. And then I did all of the funeral stuff, all this stuff. And then I willed certain things. The biggest thing was the sentimental stuff, right? His dad, my great grandfather, was a Marine Corps veteran and retired. And I have his dress boot coat, but like the flag, his medals, all those, or just a picture, stuff that she doesn't freaking need or want, like no, has no business with. Those are the things I want. And I'm like, are you really going to make me have to go like work the corner sarcastically to find the money? Because damn it, I'm coming after that stuff. And if you destroy it or whatever the case is, then I'll take you to court. But it was like, the attorney today was like, is it worth that money? And I'm like, there's not a price on the materialistic item. I lost my grandfather, like my rock, like took the place of my dad. He's been there since I came into this world. We were super close, but he was a truck driver his whole life and still worked for CFI when he passed away. Come here. Up. Come on. Up. Come up. See. Here we go. My office is slightly but I have English chocolate labs. They're the little blockier. No, Chanel. Come here. Up. Come. There we go. Look. See that? Huh? See that? He's a good boy.
Yeah.
Good boy. Yeah, he's a pretty boy. He's still slightly smaller than he should be, but his second coat hasn't come in. He just turned 2.
Yeah.
So he's a good boy though. They're here like, okay, poking at me like, okay, mom.
It's tension time. Well, I've been posting y'all's link down here, and I've had your link tree on there. Is there any other links that you want people to know about?
No, I think my link tree covers everything. I think it's pretty updated for the most part.
Okay.
To kind of give when people ask for a bio, I'm just like, oh, go to the link tree. Like I can give you a short bio, but you might have to do some digging at that point, unless you want my resume. But no, I appreciate that. Yeah, I've seen it at the bottom, and I appreciate that. I hopefully can get Air Power Foundation just a small portion to help, another nonprofit.
Yeah.
That people don't realize that 5,000 goes a long way. It's kind of frustrating that I have like over 3,000 followers on there. And I'm like, if everybody just donated $1, we'd be over $3,000. Just share it. Or, just sharing is caring, or just like the small things with it. I personally donated to it, and then to start it off, and the other donors have been Air Power Foundation people. Like, if they donate to their own cause, trust me, they're not like people. I know some people question that, but their 990s are up to 8, right? I would never support. You'll never hear me go. I won't either. I usually won't say them at all. At all regarding, if they're not thoroughly vetted, right? But they're 990s and everything's up. They're completely transparent on all their financials, and so it's a good thing to support, and the money really does go to changing and saving veterans' lives. So hopefully it'll get a little more traction from there.
I hope so too. And like I said, I'll help you get on some of these other podcasts. We'll get the word out, and okay. I will also post all these links in the Spotify description. Okay. So anybody that will see it there. So if you don't mind holding on, we'll go and throw the closing on, and I'll talk to you for a quick second before we end this. And y'all take care. We will see y'all. I believe my next show is next Wednesday. I don't think I got another one this weekend. So y'all take care, be safe, and we'll see you then.